I promised JoJo my opinions on the Adventure Zone balance in the Adventure Zone in
I
general.
will take this opportunity to run and use the bathroom really quickly.
Nice.
Alright, okay, so the Adventure Zone has a pretty decent amount of pros. First and foremost, it has legitimate queer representation that continues into the other storylines that don't involve the main balanced characters, and I have compared the Adventure Zone and Homestuck in many ways, including but not limited to the fact that it's baffling that Griffin McElroy didn't finish Homestuck but manages to pick up so many of its themes in Balance. But another reason I compare it is because both the Adventure Zone Balance and Homestuck ended with a like multi-dimensional boss fight and then a lesbian wedding, which is a remarkable, I don't know, pretty fucking good. But the story is pretty damn good and pretty compelling. The music that Griffin writes is decent. If you like a good comedy and D&D podcast, I'm not going to say this necessarily bad, but it suffers from none of the players really seriously played TTRPGs before they started this podcast, and they kind of started it as a joke, so it does stumble in getting its footing as a story and not an extension of their comedy podcast.
That's probably why I struggled with it.
Yeah.
I only got past the first couple arcs, and then I was like, okay, don't have time for this.
It does
I
hit
have
its stride.
not engaged with it.
Yeah, it does hit its stride eventually, but like it does faff around for a while before the Griffin gets a handle on what the plot's going to be. And like I mentioned, it has queer rep. But the thing about it is that none of the people writing or playing these queer characters are queer, and like it's an audio format podcast where none of the characters technically have visual representation, but like, and so a lot of people are like, oh well, maybe I'll headcanon this person as POC, maybe not, and then you start getting analysis where it's like Taco is named after a taco and has been it's like people have half joked that means that he's Latino, but then like Latino fans started taking this seriously. And then the graphic novel depicted him as being skinny with blue skin, even though he's originally listed as a sun elf, which is the D&D race that has like dark brown skin. And then like basically like
that's a lot.
The McElroys are funny, and they're a bunch of white dudes, and they recognize that they're a bunch of white dudes, and they do specifically take time to say, if people tell them that they fucked up, they take the time to say that they are aware that they fucked up. They literally, like, Bean Dad was Twitter's main character for a minute there. Bean Dad is John Roderick, lead singer of The Long Winters, who, I can hear Griffin McElroy saying in my head, thanks to John Winters and John Roderick and The Long Winters for writing the theme song of our show. It's a departure, because I've listened to so many episodes of Mabim Bam. They removed that song from their podcast. Is not on there anymore. It's still on all of their old episodes, obviously, though, because like I wouldn't want to go back and retroactively change the theme song for 500 episodes of my podcast. But like, I don't know. They're still, at the end of the day, regardless of the amount of times that they've said, oops, I didn't realize bury your gaze was a trope, I'll fix it and bring them back to life. Oops, I didn't realize that the voice I was doing for this trans woman is kind of transmisogynistic. I'll fix it in our next episode. Regardless of how many times they recognize that they made mistakes and they fix them, and that's good, and I think that like white cishet male creators like them should follow in their footsteps. At the end of the day, if I want to listen to a story that has a trans woman in it, I want that trans woman to be written by somebody who does more than like the bare minimum amount of knowledge before they write that trans woman, especially when you turn that trans woman into one of your main characters' mother, even though she's his sister. Anyways, IRC, they didn't want to talk about dark skin in the comics, so they didn't want to be white men trying to write colors of characters of color retroactively. Again, I get it. Like, they're white men, and you're right, they probably shouldn't be, but by that point, so many people had become invested in their headcanons of the character. Wow, does this sound familiar to anyone? People had become so invested in the way that they experienced this work that there were few things the McElroys could have done that would have pleased everyone, but the fact that the entirety of the visual of the of the graphic novel team is white and has been from the beginning and continues to be so is still a problem. Like,
Right.
it's they're really popular white dudes who have a D&D podcast. Like, I feel like I shouldn't need to say too much more, except it's beloved, and there's a lot of people who say, oh, like in the Adventure Zone, it's gay culture because like gay characters, and like just because all of your high school friends also like the Adventure Zone doesn't mean it's gay culture. I'm so fucking sorry, but like that. It's made, but God, whatever. I really like the Adventure Zone balance. I cried listening to the finale because I was an update listener by the time the finale went around. I do not want to say that it's not enjoyable, but at this point in time, if I'm going to invest 80 hours in your story-driven podcast, I personally am going to invest it in one written by queer people. That doesn't mean you can't enjoy it. I just
valid.
personally am burnt the fuck out on McElroy content. So Taco's fucking blue and skinny. Fuck.
God.
Justin talks about how he wanted, like, he makes a joke about how he's 17-inch waist away from Scarlett O'Hara at one point, and like a lot of people liked Fat Taco, and they're like, lol, skinny. I'm like, I hate you. Lucretia got whitewashed in the graphic novel in the most recent. Lucretia is so pale in the most recent like releases of what she's gonna look like, and like I know that she doesn't have a canonical skin tone, and I know that they just said she's black and left it at that, but like she doesn't. She looks, I don't know, weird coinky dink that Lucretia was reviled by the fandom. I'm sure that had nothing to do with anything.
Oh yeah, definitely no coincidence at all. Or no, just a coincidence. Yeah.
If the Adventure Zone is cishet, and I'm just like, but it is cishet. Everyone involved is cishet. Yeah, I think the issue is creating a situation where you're going to disappoint people who had canon things differently. Yeah, I mean, like, literally, the advantage of the podcast was that it was an audio medium, and for better or for worse, people could headcanon these characters whatever they wanted because they only had voices. And then, like, and Travis McElroy can say that he intended Magnus to be Asian all along, but at the end of the day, he is still a white dude from, fucking West Virginia.
Right.
I never knew it wasn't super queer. I just thought it was an epic queer podcast. I guess it was completely wrong based on the No, the fandom was super queer, and there are legitimately, like, again, it ends with the TAZ Balance ends with a lesbian wedding, and they're women that we see over the course of the entire arc that have a not insignificant amount of development, and they're NPCs. Like, it's not that it doesn't have queer characters. It's just like if you want. That's why I was gushing about Friends at the Table earlier today. That's why I think that's why the Belmonts like Dice Funk so much. It's why I love the Penumbra podcast so much. Is because as much as it does mean a lot to me that these men take time out of their day to make sure that they are telling these stories in a way that they're like, and they're trying to do it respectfully, at the end of the day, they're not the people who should be primarily telling these stories.
Right.
Like Night Vale still has no official art. Yeah, spent some time dumped to fuck ton of fix on the live stream suggestions. Oh hell yeah! We usually do one per person per week, so I have a secret holding pen where I keep the stuff that's coming up. So if you're like, wow, I only see one of my fix on there, I will get them all. They're just sort of in my pocket.
Right. Also, we do a community live read every first Monday of every month, where anyone in our Discord can join in, and we try to prioritize one-offs and stuff we don't typically read every single week, where we don't have like regular assigned roles or anything. So if you've got some random shit, that's a good time to get it out in front of people.
Yeah. Also, yeah, Jojo mentioned that creating aracial characters, or like literally, the Adventure Zone characters are aracial. No, not literally, because like if you look at, they release their characters sheets, so like they're not aracial. They are wrapped up in the racial landscape, I'll be generous, that is Dungeons and Dragons source material.
That's a very charitable way to put it.
Yeah, so like, yeah, but also like, I don't know. Momo will be able to speak more to this too, because Momo spent a significant amount of time in the Adventure Zone fandom, but like, it's it's a really weird space where these characters were created by white people, and people of color felt reasonably attached to them, specifically because they were able to make their own visual interpretations, which helps them relate to these characters. And then there was an official visual interpretation of these characters that pleased basically nobody. Because how could it? I don't know.
Yeah.
Just assign an explicit thing so people don't get disappointed when they read into things wrong. I think that is actually a lesson that they learned. I'm pretty sure that they actually started being more specific about their character traits so that people couldn't pull this shit anymore, but I think it took them a bit to realize it. God, alright, that was a long rant, but I have onions. Also, my adventures... The Adventure Zone and McElroy fandom crosses over heavily with the Hamilton fandom because of how heavily involved... how heavily involved Lin-Manuel Miranda was.
I always forget Lin-Manuel Miranda is a McElroy fan. I always forget he wrote the fucking Shrimp Heaven Now song.
He wrote the Shrimp Heaven Now song, appeared on the TV show, appeared on the podcast before Hamilton launched when he had written In the Heights and was a huge fan of the podcast. Wrote Bim Bam references into Hamilton.
Wait, really?
Yes, there's at least...
where?
There's an unless exchange at one point.
Oh, that's a Mabimba Bam thing?
Yep.
I know what part of Hamilton that is, because I know that show far too well, but,
Me too. Unfortunately. So, yeah, I don't know. You know, I don't... If I were to compare two phases of my life and enjoying Hamilton in the Adventure Zone at the same time versus being a homestuck in high school and talking to my friends about having quadrant crushes on other people and shipping people, if I had to compare which I personally view as more cringeworthy, despite the fact that I don't think that's a very good metric, I would choose the Hamilton phase.
Honestly, same.
Because I was an adult.
Also, we've all had high school quadrant crushes. We all had more allegiances we wanted to make public in a non-homeschool world.
I didn't, because that terminology wouldn't exist for another 12 years.
Well, yeah.
Also, I responded to this in chat, but Sylph said there's also a last 5 years reference in Hamilton, and that I'll just chalk up to him somehow having some good taste.
Well, there's a lot of other musical references in Hamilton.
That makes sense, actually.
I don't know Last 5 Years well enough to know which reference it is. I should probably listen to that show more.
I still rationalize some feelings with quadrants. I'm proud to say none of my past life is cringeworthy to me. Yeah, two things about that. One, yeah, honestly, just having access to say, having access to using quadrants as relationship stuff prior to my introduction to the queer community might have helped me understand some shit. And I'm gonna call it internalized cringe. There's probably
internalized cringe.
There's
you might
probably
patent that.
Oh shit, Val's here.
Hello.
There's probably another real word way of saying that, but I'm gonna co-opt some language and call it internalized cringe. I have some internalized cringe. I think that we should all work to abolish cringe culture, except for the things I hate.
So I'm just here because I was because I had came and then left. That's why you heard me enter and then leave, because I was having some funky microphone issues. Then I realized all I had to do was just turn off echo cancellation.
Oh, okay.
So now I'll never be cut off whenever I, have those moments where I'm going, specifically off the wall. But
Tin Kelp, the tangent will probably not be in the archive. That is correct.
We haven't even started this fic yet. I don't know if you've ever gone back and watched any of the archival clips, but I listened through the whole thing and clip around the commentary. Yeah. It's not going to be in the archive.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
So, yo. Oh, my Discord keeps on freezing.
Oh, you're going to clip it for the archive. That I misread that. Yes, I can.
Yeah. We've done that in the past where we've just like gone off on random stuff, and it's a separate thing.
Yeah, okay, one, I spent a lot of, I was actually rereading some, like, TAZ racism discourse earlier today, so it's actually on my mind. I might, if I release this as a clip, dig up some sources so you guys can read some stuff that isn't a white person talking about white people being racist.
Excuse me.
Because that seems responsible.
Yeah.
Alright, okay, we've faffed around for, like, 20 minutes.